Ladies and gentlemen, if we could have everyone's attention. We have a limited amount of time. We want to make sure we make the most of it this evening. So if we can get our seats, we'll get started. It's nice to see everyone, for the most part, stuck around. Thank you for doing that. Again, my name is Rob Fields. I'm with Peru, Indiana today. This is Tim Simpkins. He's going to help with the timing and co-moderating this evening with the debate. And it is now my pleasure to introduce to you the Republican candidates for mayor in the 2019 Peru municipal election. First, Wayne Bunker. Miles Hewitt. And David Macon. Gentlemen, thank you all for choosing to participate in our debate. We're very happy to have you all here. Thank you. For the format and for everyone's information on how we're going to operate this evening, the format is fairly straightforward and simple. We'll have opening statements from each candidate, 3 minutes each. We're going to do them the exact same way they're seated, which is alphabetical. Then we will begin the question and answer period. Each candidate will answer each question. They'll have 2 minutes to do so. We have a system of flags, gentlemen. If you see the white or semi-yellow flag, because we couldn't find yellow felt, so it's semi-yellow. You have to appreciate my sense of humor on some of this stuff. For trying really hard to be yellow flag. That means you have 15 seconds left in your time. If you see the red flag, that means stop, you're done. Okay? And I'm sure, as always, we'll try to be fair on that. I don't want to cut anybody off in the middle of the sentence. Try to finish your sentence. If you see the red flag, finish your thought. Please don't take advantage of it. There will be an opportunity for rebuttal at the discretion of the moderator, so if you'd like to request a rebuttal, just let me know, and you can have a rebuttal. And then for candidates, we'll have closing statements, 3 minutes each at the conclusion. Any questions on the format? Okay. Then we'll start with your opening statements, and Mr. Bunker, you will go first.
I'm Wayne Bunker. I'd like to explain a few of my life experiences. I'm an Air Force Vietnam era veteran. I'm a lifelong resident of Miami County and Peru. I graduated from Indiana University with a BS degree in accounting and management. I graduated from Indiana Wesleyan University with a master's degree in accounting and management. I was a member of the Peru Fire Department for 18 years. When I was at the fire department, I was an inspector, a firefighter, and I also developed the longevity and the payroll programs. I was at the Peru Community Schools as a school board member. I was elected twice to the school board. I was elected president of the school board 4 times. I was also the CFO of Peru Community Schools. There, I did the budgets, did the budgets, did all the forecasting for all the payroll functions. And I was also the human resources officer. I've been an adjunct instructor at Ivy Tech Community College for about 10 years. At Ivy Tech, I teach accounting and economics. I was also an adjunct instructor for Oakland City University when they had that program out to prison. And out there I taught finance, economics, and various management type classes. Currently I'm a real estate investor. I buy generally dilapidated homes and we work about fixing them up. I'm a member of the Manicore, the Elks, the Moose, and the Peru Free and Accepted Masons. We got some serious problems in this community. Our population in 2000 was $13,218, or 218. I have a tendency to be a little technical, I'm sorry. In 2017, our population is 11,024. That's a 16.6% decline in population for our community. What do we lose when we lose population? We lose revenues, particularly LOIT revenues, or lit revenues as they call it now. So why am I running? I'm retirement age, I don't have to do this. Because I've lived in this community all my life. And the only thing I've seen over the past few decades is decline. I was born here, I was raised here, I work here, and I invest in this community. It's important that this community turns itself around. I have a 4-part integrated program to try to turn this community around. Number 1, employment. The council candidates talked about employment. We are at the crossroads of North Central Indiana's, in North Central Indiana, we're at the crossroads, the only city in North Central Indiana that has all the facilities that makes our community valuable. We have 2 major highways, we have a major airport, and we also have the railroads here. I guess I'll just quit that. Thank you.
Mr. Hewitt?
This is new to me. My name is Miles Hewitt. It's the first time I have tried anything politically. Married, I have a wife, I have 2 sons and a daughter, and 7 grandchildren. I was born in Peru at the old Duke's Hospital. I went to Mexico to grade school through 6th grade. Halfway through that, my parents moved to Burnettsville. They enrolled me in Twin Lakes, and that's where I graduated from. Once I graduated, I worked a couple different jobs, and then I got a job back here in Peru at AGP Corporation. I worked my way up through the ladder, and at one point, I was the union steward for the whole plant. Then I went into management. I became in charge of shipping, receiving, and several other aspects, as well as part-time purchasing agent for them. I began my work career at AGP, and at the same time, I was attending Indiana University at Kokomo, and also the vocational school at Wabash. And I began working part-time for the Miami County Sheriff's Department as a jailer. Once AGP closed, I continued there for another year, doing the management, shipping out everything until the final liquidation sale. At that point, I became a full-time deputy for the Miami County Sheriff's Office under John Russo. In February of 1981, I was sworn in as a full-time police officer with the city of Peru, a position that I still hold and still work at today. During my career as a police officer here in town, I have held several different positions. I've been assistant chief. I have been administrative sergeant over the patrol division. I was juvenile sergeant. I am also a past firearms instructor, and I still teach today as a basic instructor for the Indiana Law Enforcement Academy at Plainfield. I came back to Peru because as a kid, I always remembered coming in with my dad and mom on the weekends and how I enjoyed it then. And I want to see that happen again today.
Mr. Macon?
So my name's Dave Macon. Aside from when I was in the Army and a couple, 3 years after that when I was younger, I've always lived here in Peru. I've worked in sales and marketing at small businesses, medium businesses, large businesses, mostly in the tech industry, so I have a fair amount of experience with with corporate America, and I understand generally how that works. I've owned 2 different small businesses here in Peru locally, and currently I work for my wife and her small business here in Peru. I've worked as a carpenter, I've been a recording engineer, I've delivered pizza, I worked at McClure's on the east side once when I was younger. In fact, I worked right here in this very building when it was Homer's. I started out working in the bar room and made my way out into working in the lanes and then working on the pin setters in the back. Most recently, I worked at Paul Richard GM in the internet department and then moved out to the sales floor there before I stopped that and went to work for my wife. So there's a lot of other things I've done along the way. That's just kind of the brief overview, but I've gained a lot of experience from doing all of these different kind of jobs. And it's that experience that I use to find the commonalities between people and bring them together so that we can accomplish a common goal, so we can work together. How you organize an activity, that goes a lot to that. I believe most people know how to get their own jobs done. You know, once you reach a certain age, you've done this enough, you know what you're doing. So as a mayor, I don't see me micromanaging people. It just takes management, that's all. You don't have to be involved in every single little detail of everything. I listen to what people are saying, and I take the time to understand what they're trying to communicate. It is through that understanding that you can achieve a solution. If you don't understand what the problem is, you have no chance of fixing it. Now, I understand that problems happen from time to time, but if you've got an open dialogue, if you feel comfortable coming and saying, hey, this is not right, we need to fix this, you should be able to do that without any fear or any concern for anything other than fixing the problem. So being able to listen to people and take that, people need to feel like they can present a solution to something as well. You know, people have to know that they're being heard and that their leadership is actually listening. Now, I don't have all the answers to all the questions. I can't solve all the problems we have around here by myself, but together, I really think we can. The Office of Mayor is about finding solutions. It's about connecting people, and it's about communication with everybody. I want that to count toward a question later.
So let me tell you a little bit about how we selected our questions. Our questions came from our readers. We have been soliciting questions over the last month from individuals. We've gotten quite a few. And so we have selected some. We've combined some. Some questions came in with different variations, and so we have kind of combined those into a standard question. You know, somebody might have asked, what were your top 3 priorities? What were your top 2 priorities? What were your number 1 priority? We've combined those into kind of one question. So that's how the questions were derived. So we'll begin with number 1. Question number 1, being mayor of Peru is a lot like being the CEO of a multi-million-dollar corporation. You have dozens of employees, and your decisions affect the lives of hundreds and thousands, if not thousands, of people each day. What are your qualifications to be mayor, and why should the people of Peru choose you for this office? Mr. Macon, we'll start with you.
Raise your hand. You literally raised your hand.
That's a tough one. That's a tough one. So, I mean, it kind of goes back to my opening statement. I've got a lot of experience in a lot of different jobs, working with a lot of different people in industries that don't necessarily connect very well. And yet there's always synergy to find. There's always a way to find a solution if you're looking for a solution. And that's really what being mayor is all about. I've got a pretty decent amount of experience doing that, working with different people from all over the country. Working with different people from all over the country, different states. I've I've spent a lot of time working with people from different countries. There are language barriers sometimes that I've had to overcome. There's always a solution if that's what you're looking for. And that's kind of how I look at life. I'm not looking for why we can't do a thing. I automatically go into, well, how can we do this? Even when it's kind of silly. I mean, you may not think that that's the best way to go, but when you start to look at it and you get other people involved and see what's happening, suddenly, oh, hey, this is a pretty good idea. So because I listen and because I can make those connections and find those commonalities between different people and different businesses, I think that makes me a pretty good choice to kind of get Peru back going on the right path.
Mr. Hewitt?
I've had 38 plus years in law enforcement. I have handled numerous stressful situations, numerous different situations that's sometimes funny. I've worked other jobs to where I've been in charge of several different people, and I'm willing to listen to anyone. The mayor's job for the city of Peru needs to be a transparent job. You need to know what's going on. You need to have your door open so that anybody can come and talk to you anytime during the day, so that you do know what the people are thinking. You do know what's going on in Peru. I'm not saying you have to micromanage anything, but communications and listening is going to play a big part in the office of the mayor should I be elected. For one thing, I'm going to be holding meet and greets after I'm elected mayor. Come and have breakfast with me at Hardee's, Gabriel's. Come and have coffee with me. Come and have lunch with me. At least a couple times a month, because the citizens of Peru deserve a mayor that'll be out there with them and listening to them. Together, we can turn everything around and get Peru back on track where it needs to be.
Thank you. Mr. Bunker?
I have unique qualifications. Anyway, I have unique qualifications by having taught college, and I've been president of the school board. And as president of the school board, we had to work together as a team. We had team building sessions, and over the 4 years that I was president of the school board, I felt that the school actually moved forward. The CFO of the schools, I actually work with governmental budgets. It's entirely different than business budgets. There's a lot more rules involved and a lot more intricacies involved with government budgets. I've been there and I've done that, and that's my biggest asset running for mayor. I've been on that side of doing what needs to be done for the community of Peru as a elected official.
Thank you. Our next question, what do you think is the most pressing need our city has, and how do you plan on addressing this need during your term of office? Mr. Hewitt, we'll start with you.
Besides trying to get in industry in Peru, we need to do something with our infrastructure, our city streets, our buildings. The blight program is a good program. However, it needs to go another step farther when you hire someone to tear down a building. They need to finish the job from start to finish. Drive down Broadway and you'll see a gravel parking lot where a building used to be. Beside that gravel parking lot is a building that's still there, that still has the ramifications of what was inside of it. It's still got plaster on the outside wall. You got jagged bricks hanging from the building and everything else. You need to beautify the downtown area and build streets and rebuild them so that we can get industry to come back in here. We can't do it all at once, I realize that. But at the same time, it shouldn't take 8 to 10 months or 12 months to have a street torn up that we're driving on every day, and that's the first thing people see coming into our town. They see North Broadway tore up in front of the high school. They see it tore up over on Albert Street and some or the other. Then they get downtown and they see the building that's been tore down. It's a nice gravel parking lot beside of it, but something needs to be done to finish the job to where that's what people look at it.
Thank you. Mr. Booker.
What Peru needs is a complete integrated program. And as I was saying during the introduction, I have a program that ties employment, streets and sidewalks, recreation and transportation together. If we want to get industry or any type of business in, we have to have some type of a program that ties it all together. On the employment side, I would be looking at warehousing and distribution. We're in the 21st century. Where manufacturing, if you can land it, is very expensive to land. We are at a primary location for distribution. We have 44 million people that live within 250 miles of Peru, and they're all buying products. Why we're not developing that asset, I do not know. It was in the 2015 Miami County Comprehensive Plan, and it hasn't been touched since then. When people come into town, like Miles just said, our sidewalks look terrible. Our streets are busting up. If you're trying to get a prospective client in here, it just doesn't look good. Recreation, we have limited recreations in this town, and I would like to start with a splash pad. We're the only community out of 17 surrounding communities that does not have a water feature in the community. We're the only one. And the other communities, some of the other communities have lakes. Finally, transportation. I would propose a fixed route transportation system. It's a little bit different than the wide demand system in the fact that it runs a fixed route. I have a little bit more data, but I'll run out of time, but it will help the community, lower income individuals to keep and hold a job. One of the biggest issues is trying to get a job is getting transportation there, and for the individuals who use transportation, or need transportation, that would be a big asset. Thank you.
Mr. Macon.
Can you ask the question again? It's been a while.
What do you think is the most pressing need our city has, and how do you plan on addressing that need during your term of office?
The most pressing need. I think that's the linchpin to the question is what is the most pressing need? Like Wayne, like you said, there's a whole package of things. It isn't just a thing that, like if we just fixed all the roads, everything would be great. If we just fixed all the sidewalks, everything would be great. It's a package deal. And there are a lot of aspects to our community that need to be rolled up into that package. So to me, the single most important thing that we can do right away, and this is going to sound a little radical, but we need a city website. Now bear with me for just a moment, because that sounds like, really, a website? What? If you were going to start up a business that you wanted to attract people to come and buy stuff from you, not just from Peru, but from Kokomo and Logansport and Wabash, or even from further out, from southern Indiana or from South Bend or wherever, how would you get the word out about your business to that region? How would you attract people to your business? It's not going to be a billboard out on 31. It's not going to be on Channel 13 News. You're going to use the internet. So if we created a website from the city that incorporated all the different aspects of our town, parks and recreation, pictures of our parks, what features are actually there and actually work, have a way for people to report potholes or other problems with the roads so that the city can find out where they are. You know, we're not Indianapolis. We can't put a camera on the front of every truck. We got plenty of people in this room alone that would be more than happy to tell us when it's time to fix the road. The budget, I'm running out of time here. How you get information back to the community and how you get information from the community, that drives all of this. It puts all of those pieces in the public eye so that everybody can see them and holds all of us accountable to actually affect the change that everybody wants. And you do that, you start doing that through a website.
Thank you. Our next question, the city was recently forced due to a budgeting error to reduce the police and fire department by one person each. Do you feel this was the right solution to the budget shortfall? What would you have done differently had you been mayor? And we'll start with Mr. Bunker.
The budget shortfall was primarily because of a lack of understanding of how the other system worked, which I was in the fire department when we developed the longevity incentive system. When they went from a longevity incentive system to a matrix system, and the matrix system is not bad, so don't take me wrong about that, but the matrix system greatly increased the cost to the city, and no one, it appears that no one calculated the true cost of what the agreement was going to be. So I calculated the true cost, I did some freedom of information requests, and one thing they didn't take in consideration was when we had the longevity incentive, the pensioners didn't get any increases in pay after 20 years. They were paid to 20 years. So when you went from the longevity to the matrix system, for the active duty firefighters, the cost was $86,456.09. And that was because of perk costs and the actual cost of the matrix. And for the police department, the cost was $79,359. So you put those two together, you're off about $166,000. That's just for the active duty. Now, when you take the retirees in, which was the 37 Pension Act, when you bring them into the picture, there is pension relief that comes from the state, and they get that every year. But this year, being as they made the agreement so late, I don't know if they're going to actually get the relief that they actually need, because the pensioner cost of this program for the fire department was $66,000, and for the police department was $53,000, and the pensioners, not that they don't deserve the money, but that has never been figured into a previous budget. So therefore, it's only going to be worse next year. The additional cost next year with a 0% pay raise will be about another $20,000 on top of the $100 and some thousand this year.
Mr. Macon.
I still don't know what happened in the first place. I still can't figure it out. Or how they even found out that it happened. I read in the Kokomo Tribune where the clerk treasurer said that they found out when an officer came into the office asking about retirement policies. But then I saw the mayor answering the same question on Peru, Indiana Today, and said that it happened when they made the first perf payments of the year. Those two seem very wildly different. So I don't understand what the problem was. I don't know how it occurred in the first place, and it still hasn't been explained. So if I had to take a guess at how it happened, I would say due diligence. It seems like if you're going to change the pay rate, you would run that through your payroll people and let them spit out the answer on the other end, and then it's going to be painfully obvious what's happened. Depending on whose answer was correct, maybe in fact how they found out. They went through payroll and went, whoa, hey, this is kind of crazy. But the point is we still don't know. It's never really been exposed. So what would I do differently? I guess I would have run it through payroll and see what it actually comes out to be, as opposed to not running it through payroll.
Mr. Hewitt.
Due to the fact that I am still employed by the Peru City Police Department, I am secretary for our local Fraternal Order of Police Lodge 72. We negotiated in good faith, as did Mayor Greer. Where the oversight came about, I cannot say. Are we happy with losing an individual for a year? Because we've been told that possibly we will be replacing the firemen and policemen next year. No, we're not. But everything was done in good faith between our local FOP negotiating team and the current mayor. At our last meeting before last, we drafted a letter and sent to the newspaper and stuff on our take of this. It was also motion made and passed that no individual of our lodge would be speaking about this, other than the fact that they were letters sent to explain our view, the mayor's view, and therefore, I can't comment on anything else about it. Other than everything was done in good faith. It was something that was overlooked. How it was overlooked, we're not sure.
Thank you. This question was again submitted by a reader, and I'm sure each of you are going to love it. Overseeing the police and fire department is one of the most important responsibilities of the mayor. Who will you appoint as your police and fire chief? Mr. Hewitt.
Well,
And I don't blame the questioner.
I understand. The police department and the fire department have a multitude of individuals that are very capable of running the department. Same as the street department. I have not even given a thought on who I would put in as police chief, fire chief, or head of the street department. My main goal right now is to go through this process and become mayor. Then I will sit down and meet with each individual entities. And hopefully, we will come to an agreement to where they can have input on who they work for, rather than the fact of Mayoral saying, you're gonna be the police chief. Everything goes back to communications. I've seen it happen time and time again to where police chiefs have been appointed, and then you have good old boys club. If you work with all of the individuals, that shouldn't happen. But there again, it's all communications.
Mr. Makin.
So I'm very hopeful that I will be able to appoint Miles as chief. That would solve several problems. No, so as this evening goes on, you'll start to see I'm kind of a process guy. There's a lot of things, we don't always know what we don't know. I'm about the procedure, about how we go about making decisions. And if I can communicate that, then there won't be any surprises when I do something. So I don't see any need to change either of those chiefs as a matter of, oh my gosh, this has got to happen right now. As far as I can tell, neither department is in imminent danger of collapsing. They seem to be functioning quite well, as far as I can tell. Now, having said that, that doesn't mean that change can't happen. So, firstly, I'd like to sit down with both chiefs and just find out what their take is. How do they envision themselves running their department? I got some learning to do, I'll be honest. I don't know exactly how the police department runs, all the ins and outs, nor for the fire department. So I have to learn, I have to listen. And from that, I'll get an understanding of what their vision for their respective departments are. After that, I see no reason to not sit down and talk with every officer in the department that applies to whichever chief it is we're looking at, to get some feedback from them. Now, I'm not saying it's a democratic process where everybody just votes and whoever gets the most votes wins the chief. That's not the answer. But I don't believe that either department should have no input on what's going on. The chief still has to maintain a cohesive force. So we need buy-in from everyone or almost everyone about who's driving the bus and what direction we're going. And that's how I would go about doing it.
Mr. Bunker.
Being a past member of the fire department, I understand the fire department more than I understand the police department, quite obviously. But when I was on the school board and then when I was the CFO of the schools, we hired quite a few individuals. And what we did was, is we took applications from internal candidates, which in this particular case would be the current chief, would be Eric, and Mr. Meeks would be quite obviously applying, and then you would entertain any other candidates that would want to apply. After they apply, you would sit down and you would interview them all and go through what their vision is for their departments, and then make an educated decision of who would best serve the department.
A little bit easier question here. With the recent closure of Kmart and Schneider Electric, what can a mayor do to keep businesses from leaving the city of Peru? Mr. Bowman.
That's sort of a tough question, because in the world that we live in today, it's international businesses and local communities actually have very little say in what can be done. But what you can do is you can reach out to the business and see if you can actually make contact with them and find out what their feelings are. It should start long before that. You should have somebody within the administration that reaches out to the businesses, at least on a semi-annual basis, to find out what their needs are and what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong. And that way you sort of have a basis to find out what's going on in the community. As far as when they decide to leave, there's probably not a whole lot you can do. It's a reality. When Schneider Electric, which is in France, decides they're going to leave, they're going to leave. That's a reality. But what we can do is we can have empathy within the city administration for the employees that just got announced that they lost their jobs. We can meet with them, find out what their needs are, trying to connect them with the right agencies to help them move forward in the path. For example, they're going to have probably more advanced training. You can call an Ivy Tech counselor in, and they can go over what the options would be like that. Just some examples like that. Thank you.
Mr. Macon.
Having worked for a number of large corporations, big hiring people, my experience with them has been they don't give a crap about us, flat out. They don't come here because we're such nice people. They don't come here because we're wonderful. They don't come here because they want to give us jobs. It fits their bottom line, period. When it doesn't, bye, they're gone. That's how they work. There's not necessarily anything wrong with that. That's part of capitalism. But what can we do as a city? What can the mayor do? What can the city council do? What can any of us do? Small business is our path forward. It's just that simple. Small business, micro business, people that hire 3 or 4 people, people that hire 50 people, 25 people. Think of our business climate here. Think of who hires people in Peru and Miami County both. And compare that to how you would handle your retirement plan. You wouldn't just put all of your retirement money into 2 or 3 companies. That wouldn't make any sense, because if one of them goes belly up, you're toast. You're not retiring. Now you're working another 15 years. Our job market, we should look at it the same way. We need to diversify. If we lose 2 or 3 businesses along the way, that's bad, but it doesn't necessarily come across as a train wreck in our community. We can survive that. There are things that we can do to help small businesses that do matter to them. Whether we give some big business, a few extra dollars off their tax credit, they don't care. That doesn't affect them. But a small business owner, that's a big deal. We can work with our local small business owners, connect them to other small business owners. There's lots of things we can do to help that as a community, as a government, as all of that. That small business is our path forward.
Mr. Hewitt.
One of the things we don't want to see is any industry or any department store leaving the city of Peru. What we need to do is reach out to them, and if the mayor is out there talking to people, he's going to know that there's problems coming. He's going to work with the factories. He's going to work with Kmart. We lost South Peru grocery store. We need to work in getting these other things back. Another thing, we give all kinds of tax incentives and stuff for new businesses coming to Peru. What do we do for the ones that's been here? How do we work it with them? They don't get anything. They're paying their taxes like they should and everything, and a lot of them don't say a word. We need to start given some sort of incentive to keep the businesses we have here, whether it be Kroger's, whether it be Kmart, or anywhere. We also need to try and bring in other businesses to fill these voids, rather than have an empty building. Good example is the N&W dorm out there, the old dorm. It's sitting there being totally destroyed by vandalism today. They had a good idea. There was, Kenny Licklider had donated it to a group of vets. He was going to revamp it, have all of the canines that are retired out there, along with disabled veterans, taken care of. That was a good idea to start with, however, their funding fell through, and now we have another vacant building that is in real poor shape.
Thank you. What can you do as mayor to attract new businesses to Peru? Mr. Bunker.
Probably the first thing we can do is have somebody within the mayor's office that knows how to go out and talk to business and find out what their needs are and what they need to come to this community. Secondly, we need a program that's integrated, as I've mentioned, that will allow businesses to come here. Most businesses don't want to come to a town that doesn't have an adequate park system, that doesn't have adequate streets and sidewalks that are in disrepair, don't have adequate transportation needs. Because one of the biggest things I have heard over the last couple of years from businesses are that they can't get workers to work because they don't have a car to get there. So, we just have to work together with a total integrated program to pull businesses in. Another idea that I would have is, I know David talks about the internet. Now, how many people actually go down Google 38,000 pages to find out who number 38,000 is? Does anybody? No. I would be interested in sending a person within the administration to trade shows that's interested in logistics and warehousing and type of businesses that are not great big, but because of our location, we'd be a tremendous asset to them. When you go out and you talk to somebody, it's much easier to shake the hand and read their facial expressions than it is to go to a website, and I go to websites all the time for my research. But when you go to a website, it's cold. We need to get somebody that goes out on a frequent basis to make person-to-person contact in the type of businesses that we want to locate to our town. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Can I get a rebuttal on that? I'd like to rebut.
Well, you haven't had a chance to respond first of all, so go ahead.
Yeah, you're next.
So, it's interesting, you kind of call me out on the internet thing, and that's fine. It's a debate. We're supposed to be debating each other's positions. So I appreciate you debating me on that. But in the same paragraph that you're saying people aren't going to find us on the internet, you're talking about how you do research on the internet.
You do.
That's kind of contradictory. You're either researching on the internet or you're not. And if a small business wants to research this area on the internet, I think if we play our internet cards right, and I'll speak to that when I get back to my turn, but we don't have to be at page 38,000. It doesn't have to be that way. So I think it's kind of facts not entered into evidence here. You're going to poo-poo the internet thing. I don't think you quite understand that. Or maybe you do, since you're doing research on the internet.
Mr. Hewitt?
Okay, go ahead and rephrase the question.
I get lost too. It's okay. What can the mayor do to attract new businesses to Peru?
The first thing I'd like to see done, with Baldwin painting and everything being out here at Grissom, we have a large runway out there that we need to do a feasibility study on to see if it would not benefit the city of Peru. Right now, our airport that we have here can at most land a twin-engine plane. We need something, if we can get that opened up out there to where we can start with a small hub. I'm not saying put millions of dollars into it and getting it started, but get our foot in the door and get started up. Then we can bring in all of the internet sales and everything else. May even be able, down in the road in the future, to bring in FedEx, UPS, and have a hub out there to where, when you bring in all of the businesses that a hub would put in out there, Peru's gonna grow. We need a different avenue than what we've had in the past. In the past, it seems to have been status quo. They don't want to reach out, or I won't say that. Certain ones don't want to reach out to expand the horizon. That's what we're gonna have to do to make this city grow. That's what we're gonna have to do to make this city survive. I was asked by the Tribune at Kokomo. Peru Tribune has never contacted me since I filed for mayor. Kokomo has. Kokomo done an interview. And with that, I'll let it go and I'll continue later.
Mr. Macon, did you want to, you had your rebuttal, do you want to respond to the
We
question?
can go.
Okay.
I want to say internet again.
Okay.
I'm going to try and speak very quickly for this part, because there's a lot of points I want to touch on. So, internet. From a resident's or a prospective resident's point of view, if you want to see what's going on around here, we need to come up on a search result for that. We need to. So we need to have the information in one central location so that we can then do SEO, which is search engine optimization. We can fine tune the site so that Google won't put us at the 38,000th page. They'll put us up higher because we're more relevant. The city's website right now ends with .org. That's nice. It's intended for community organizations, 501c3s, that kind of thing. Google knows this. A .gov site is hugely valuable, more than I can explain now, to Google, because it makes you an automatic source of reference material. And anything that appears on your site goes much higher up in the search results because you are an authority. Not anybody can get a .gov site. It's highly regulated. We're eligible for that. We don't get it. We can post things on the city's website about real estate, about the parks department, show people pictures. Heaven forbid we put in some video. That's the latest thing now. We have videographers in our community that I have no doubt would do this for free and happily share it. That's how we get people to find out what we have here. That's how we get them to come here. All these little programs that we've got for small businesses. LTL trucking, less than truckload. I'm not gonna make it mine. It's a big thing. It costs a lot of money. We've got people here that have loading docks. We can share that loading dock and save people money in their shipping when they just need a skid or two of stuff. But all of that information gets disseminated via the internet first.
The loss of Kmart and Schneider will obviously affect the income to the city from taxes, also the loss of population over the last several years. If elected, what steps would you take to put the city on a firmer financial footing? Mr. Macon, we'll start with you.
Small business is our path forward. I have several paragraphs here. It's just the same one over and over again. Small business is our path forward. We've got to get small business in here. They're typically more reliable than a large business. You don't have a lot of the issues with a small business that you do with a large business. We actually have the ability as a community and as a government to work together with a smaller business that we simply do not have with a large business. So we can actually kind of take charge of our own fortunes, our own future. We can build our community in ways that actually make sense and are within our ability to do. There is no amount of taxes. If we abated all of the taxes for a large business in the community, it just wouldn't amount to a rounding error on their bottom line. And so what real advantage is it from their point of view to give them a few $1,000s? It just isn't there. Small business, we can do that. We can get those programs, we can get that information that people need to know that is available here. Again, onto the city website. Other community groups can share that out. Google sees all of that. They are so deep in our lives, it's not even funny. We have the ability to use that to our advantage and bring that back to us. I would challenge all of you, look around at some small town websites that are growing. It's very easy. Go to Google and type in fastest growing small towns in Indiana. Try that. And look and see which cities they are, and then go look at their website. See what information is provided there. See how it looks, what colors they use, how interactive they are, how engaging they are, and then look at ours.
Mr. Hewitt, please.
It's not just small businesses, it's all businesses. Whether they're small, whether they're large, we need to have an outreach of all the businesses to try and bring them back to Peru. The internet is a big thing, I realize that. The internet has also caused several thousand jobs lost. You can go on the internet and buy anything you want to tonight, have it shipped to your house, instead of going to Home Depot, instead of going to Menards. What we need to do is reach out to all businesses, not just the small ones. Amazon, for one, is a huge internet business. There again, if we develop Grissom out here, maybe they would want to put a hub in here to ship out their Amazon products. Without going out and trying to get it, nothing's ever going to be done. No one that, as far as I know, has ever went out and tried to recruit any of the businesses. Other than, they're trying to work with keeping what we got. And I understand that. But we need to set aside a group. And whether that comes from the appointment of the mayor or the city council, to start going out and trying to recruit small businesses. There used to be a Spiegel's catalog store right here on Broadway. You'd go in there and order your parts, your tires and stuff, they'd come back next week. We need to start doing things like that again. So with that, I'm getting a yellow flag.
Mr. Bunker?
Seems like they got off target. What was the question?
Question is what, with Schneider and Kmart leaving and affecting the income of the city with taxes, what steps would you take to put the city on a firmer financial footing?
Okay, I thought this was talking about taxes. Technical me has a bunch of number of taxes, and what we have to look at is our assessed values. That's what pays all of our tax bills for our community. I have the data back to 2011. Our assessed values was $226 million roughly in 2011. Our assessed values in 2019 is $226 million. What does that tell you? We can't generate enough taxes to pay for what this town needs. If you want to keep up with inflation, our assessed value should be $258 million. Okay? So we're getting way behind on that. Our road taxes are going backwards. I talked to the auditor of Miami County. We can expect in 2021 maybe a $400,000 to $600,000 revenue shortfall because of Square D Schneider when they move out. And the city gets about 45% of that. That's what I understand. So what's our solution? Miles said, people buy on the internet. Well, if you buy on the internet, it has to be distributed from somewhere. We're at the crossroads. There's 44 million people that live within 250 miles of Peru. We need to get out there. We need to find the prospects, and we need to start concentrating on distribution and warehousing. They're not the highest paid jobs, but they're jobs to start with that you can springboard from that. So in order to get our tax revenues up and get our budgets back in line, we have to grow. If we don't grow, it's going to continue to go backwards, and the data shows we're going backwards every year. And I got a few more seconds here. Stacy knows you've hit your tax caps in your business, right? Your business is capped. There's a 3% cap, a 2% cap, and a 1% cap. Basically, the 3% cap and the 2% caps have all been hit. We're down to a 1% cap, which is the residences. When they hit that, you can raise no more taxes. They're done. And we're getting closer to 1%. Thank you.
This is a question near and dear to my heart. Drug abuse is a major issue facing our community. What as mayor would you do to help combat this problem? We'll start with Mr. Bunk.
That's an age-old problem that's very difficult to answer. Been a lot brighter minds than mine that's worked on the drug abuse problems over the years. Only thing you can do is work with the social service agencies, the courts, and try to get some type of educational material out to young people about the problems with addiction to any type of drugs. Whether it be caffeine, young people are pretty much addicted to the caffeine with the monster drinks and things like that. They're mixing it with alcohol now, which is even probably more dangerous. All drugs, addictions need to be looked at not as a personal weakness, but as something that an individual would need counseling on to determine perhaps how to get over the issue that they have.
Mr. Hewitt?
What I would like to see a few years back, our city police department partnered with the county, the state. They had a drug task force. We have within our department 2 individuals that are detectives that work primarily drugs. What we need to do is expand that and see about getting the county involved in it, to see about getting the state involved in it. The more people we have involved in that, the more money we can have to put in. Right now, every police officer on the Peru City Police Department carries 2-pack of Narcan. The reason we carry 2-pack, one for the individual that we saved their life, another one for the officer. That stuff is so, fentanyl is so potent, it comes right through your skin. And thank God we haven't had it here, but there's been other departments that when they would go in and try and save somebody's life, giving them Narcan have become affected by it. And therefore, they've had to have Narcan given to them by another officer on the scene. We need to educate these people as well as doing a drug task force. If we can hold educational classes, start out in grade school. Nobody wants to hear that a 6th grader up there is high, but it's happening. It may not happen here, but there's a good chance it will. And we need to start at the grade schools right on up.
Mr. Macon?
Politically, this is a hot potato. As far as I can tell, there's only 2 solutions that anyone has ever really presented to the problem. You either police it into oblivion, or you use compassion and provide training and education and rehabilitation and all of that. There's kind of only the 2 sides of it. Excuse me. And I don't think that either one alone is the answer. I don't think that really resolves it. I think it takes a combination of the 2. There are certainly some hardcore people that are just, you're not gonna get through to it, at least not right away. And so we rely on the police to go handle that with a quickness, because they're dangerous. There's other people that have other options, other opportunities in front of them. Maybe they're not too far gone, or however you want to phrase that. I'm not a therapy guy, so I don't know exactly how they phrase that. But I did get to meet with the 3 substance abuse agencies that work in Miami County, the big 3. And More for Miami has some interesting programs that they're trying to roll out. So I think it would be a fantastic thing to work with them as a city to handle the part of it that we can handle. I think Miles is right. We got to police it. We have to. But we also have to have some compassion for these people, because it's not a perfect system. They're not perfect people, and they make mistakes. More for Miami has some really interesting things going on. Job skills training, not like just putting you to work, but teaching you how to do something. We can have internships. We can have them come out and help work in the park and volunteer for things. We can work to connect them with other groups that can provide assistance and at least give them a shot at getting out from underneath this thing before we go straight to handcuffs. So, combination of the two.
Sorry, please amend me.
I guess.
What would be your top priority as mayor, and how will you accomplish that priority during your term of office? And we'll start with Mr. Gill.
The first thing as mayor would be the streets in Peru. We need to have decent streets to travel on. Then I would try to bring in new industry. Whether it be small industries, whether it be mom and pop shops or something, I'd like to see the downtown develop the way it used to be. Like I said earlier, there was a Spiegel's catalog shop right here on Broadway. There was a meat cutter shop on Broadway years ago. Krusty's, you know, we need to start with the development of downtown and work out. Every city that's growing is growing because they have started working from the downtown going out. I've been doing a lot of work lately up in Elkhart, Mishawaka area, South Bend area. They're growing leaps and bounds, but they're doing it from the inside out. And that's what we need to do here. Our first priority should be our streets. Our second priority should be trying to get businesses in here and redevelop the downtown area. Then we need to also work on bringing in other industries, other factories. You know, we've been lucky here within the last 15, 18 years, we've had some relocate here from other cities. But at the same token, we're losing some too. Our stamp shop out here on North, by the jail is closing up and moving to Logansport. We need to stop it.
Mr. Bunker.
In my program, 3 of the items, which is streets and sidewalks, recreation, and transportation, can be handled within the current budget constraints, I think, after I study the budget. The key critical item affecting Peru right now is the employment loss. As Miles just said, you have LS Stamping, you have Square D, you have Kmart, you have Value Shoppers, and then you also had Fastenal's closed. So we've lost 5 in the last 5 months. As we keep losing businesses, our revenue is going to fall. So our highest and our greatest priority right now is to reach out and identify the type of businesses or industry, however you want to look at it, that would be compatible with our community, and reach out and try to recruit them to our community. If we don't recruit businesses, none of the other things fall into place because there's not going to be any money to do it.
Mr. Macon.
I got to go along with that. The big thing here is business. We've got to get business back in here. But the question is, how do we do that? What can we do immediately to affect that? And one thing that I think we've kind of left off here is the people of Peru. This administration has mentioned it. Past administrations have mentioned it. I've heard it myself. I think it's absolutely true. Everywhere I go, it's very common to hear people complaining about Peru. People that live here. People are unhappy with various different things, whether it's the roads, whether it's the sidewalks, whether it's not knowing what's going on. Problems abound. We don't need to rehash them all here. I think we all know what the issues are that we face. So one thing I would add to that list is we need to find a way to get the government back in sync with people, the people that live here. We need to get them educated so that they know what specifically it is we're doing as a government. There's a huge disconnect there. Rumors abound. You can't walk 10 feet out of your house without getting hit with a rumor of some sort that has something to do with the city in some way. Where's the communication for that? Where is Where would you think you could go to find out about that? Our newspaper has sort of dwindled in size and staff over years now, and so that's not necessarily a good source. Kokomo's trying to pick up some of those pieces and get us some information there, but we get conflicting stories from different sources, and you just never know. So I'm going to say internet again. It's a very inexpensive way for every department in the city to directly communicate to everybody that lives here and let them know exactly what's going on, when, where, why, and how. That's simple. Let's make ourselves feel better.
Okay, this question kind of goes with the previous question. So, if the city received a $1 million grant to use in any way that you wanted, what would you do with that money and why? We'll start with Mr. Macon.
$1 million, huh? Well, I'd have to give that some thought. I really would. I think that would be $1 million seems like a lot of money, but it isn't really a lot of money in the grand scheme of things. So that might be a good opportunity to kind of touch back on the point I just got done making. That might be a good way to maybe reach out to the community and say, hey, we've got this money. We're going to break it up into, let's say, 4 piles. We've got 4 piles of $250,000. Here's some things we can do in the park. Pick one. Here's some things we can do. Here's some sidewalks that we can fix. We can do this area, we can do this area, we can do this area. Pick one. And so on and so forth. We can kind of start getting people engaged again. Let everybody know that your vote really does count, that you really do have a say in what the city does and when. There's no reason we can't just put out an open question. Hey, we've got $250,000 to spend. And go. Let's get some feedback. So how can we leverage that, not just to make some fixes and repairs and address some things in our community, but how can we use that to actually engage with people? Why don't we have a piece of that maybe to help incentivize small business to come here? We could, hey, look, if you'll bring your business here within the next 6 months, we will give you X number of dollars as a grant to accomplish something. So we could use a part of it that way. Maybe spread it around a little bit instead of not doing something all the way and get it done. Let's touch on several things and do little pieces of stuff to kind of spread that around.
Mr. Hewitt?
There is so many things that you could do with $1 million in Peru. There again, we need sidewalks and we do need streets. However, for the general public, we have people sleeping under the bridges right now. They have been all winter. They do all summer. We need to set up, and what I would propose to do with $1 million, part of it would be set up to where these people could come in, get warm, have a meal, have a soup line, whatever you want to call it. Right now, we have nothing here in Peru. If somebody comes up and goes through town and they run out of money, the only thing we have to do, we have to go to churches. And there's nothing wrong with that. But Peru itself needs to develop something to help the people that desperately need the help. And I understand we have people out there that abuse the system. You're going to have that wherever you go. However, if we could set up a soup line, so to speak, they don't need private rooms down at the Best Western or anything like that. It's somewhere that they can come in out of the cold, have a hot cup of soup, hot cup of coffee, and then I would also see about trying to bring industry in. And that would be the things that I would work on.
Mr. Bunker?
First of all, $1 million doesn't go very far. It would hire about 15 new police officers. That's about all. So when we put it in that type of terms, $1 million doesn't go far in this day and age. I got one point I'd like to touch on because I probably won't get a chance. I'm interested in a transportation system to help some of our less advantaged individuals find and try to keep jobs. Here's some statistics. 90% of the people who ride a fixed route system, not the demand system, that's what the Y has, 90% are 18 to 65 years old. They're the working people. 70% are transportation dependent, means they don't have a car. They can't get to work. We see people walking up down Main Street to McDonald's every day. They don't have a way to get around. 49% of the people who ride a fixed transportation system are in the lowest income bracket, which probably precludes why they don't have a car. 80% of the people who use fixed transportation use it at least 3 days a week. 60% use it for the primary purpose to go to work or school. Ivy Tech, McDonald's, wherever. Okay? The typical rider of a fixed transportation system is between the ages of 19 and 34, female, and make less than $15,000 a year. The average fee, because transportation systems have fees, Kokomo's managed to get theirs up with no fee, there's grants that can maybe make that happen. The average fee is 96 cents a day, or 96 cents a trip, $36 a month is what they have passed them. There's state and federal funding available for it. The cost ratio benefit, this is from a Ball State University, that's where I use the internet at. From a Ball State University study, Professor Dick's down there, for every dollar you spend, you get $3 back in benefits. So, something like this would help our employers maintain a reliable workforce. It help Ivy Tech maybe get some students in, and it help our new Y that's going to be down here be able to get the community to go down for all their services.
It's spring in Indiana, and that means crazy weather, fluctuations in weather. It means baseball, go Tigers. And it means potholes. Every single administration comes into office promising to do something about potholes. What will your administration do about potholes? Mr. Bunker.
Called the short straw. Okay, potholes, yeah, they occur every year. All the cities have them. Indianapolis has a group of them this year, from what I understand. A lot of our pothole problem comes from our inability to maintain our streets to start with. As the streets age, water gets in between the cracks, and therefore, when it freezes and thaws, we get potholes. Another problem cities have, they try to save money when they're doing their paving projects, so they look for cheaper ways of doing roads. There's only one way to do the road, and that's probably the expensive way, because that's the one that lasts the longest. Anytime you try to save a nickel, it's going to cost you a dime. So to fix potholes, the only answer currently is you build a pothole and you set up a program, an effective program that starts looking at the streets. Peru has a lot of streets that need paved, and I have some numbers here. I won't be able to go over it. Our wheel tax is our wheel tax revenues declining, and our motor vehicle highway fund, where we get some of that money from, are declining because of our community itself is declining. So it's a compound program that has to be looked at and addressed. There's no simple answer to potholes, unfortunately.
Mr. Hewitt?
Yeah, no. One of the first things I would do is, whether it be with the building inspector or one of the other offices, they would set up a website for the city of Peru to report all of these potholes and the progress that has been made. If there's a pothole on Main Street, there was a hole down there for 3 weeks that you could almost drive a car in, and finally they put gravel in. That's not fixing the pothole. It would be monitored and guarantee you within a timely fashion, every pothole would be checked. I'm not saying they would be fixed. I realize during the winter months it's hard to get patching material, and the way to fix them is not just dump cold patch in them. They have to, I've been on the internet, you have to heat with blowtorch. one of the big weed burgers. Heat with blowtorch, the hole, after you clean it out. Put the patching in it, heat it up again. Don't just dump cold patching in it and drive back and forth with the truck. Next time it freezes and everything, it's gonna be right back out. There's a correct way of doing it, and anybody can go online and see how to do it. They heat them up, they pour their patching in, they pour in liquid tar, they heat them back up, smooth them out, and then it's done.
Mr. Macon?
So I went on the internet as well and did some research into this because one of the many things I've done, paving roads is not one of them. So I wanted to educate myself a little bit on this. To what you said, I would add, you can actually cut the pothole back into fresh pavement where there aren't any cracks, and that helps with the repair process. But going back to how I opened, to me, this is, I think our street department has the ability to change the way that they look at potholes. I don't have any reason to think that they don't have the desire to change it. So they want to change it. I think if they were allowed to, if they were supported, I think a lot of these things could happen. One thing you can do if you really want to see change is provide some way to hold your elected officials' feet to the fire. And oddly enough, a website is a good way to do that. So I've suggested several times, why don't we have a way for people to report potholes, and then we post that on the city's website, where the pothole is, the date it was reported, and then later we can report the day it was repaired. And then everybody can see, oh, hey, they got on that pretty quick, and feel a little better about the city. Or, hey, that's still there, it's been 6 weeks, what's going on? And let the phone calls begin. But you expose that, you make that more transparent, and all of a sudden, yeah, whoever you vote for, gonna get tired of answering the phone pretty quick.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I think I can make a comment for all three of us here. We're certainly not critical of the street department. They've done an honorable job over the last winter trying to keep up with the potholes because you see them out there almost every day trying to fill potholes. So I don't think any of us are critical of the street department. So let's get that probably out and open.
I completely agree.
Well, and I don't think the question is critical of them either, because as I stated, this is an every year thing. And it doesn't matter which election it is, every candidate gets this question, what are you gonna do about the potholes? Because it's a never-ending cycle of roads need to be upkeep. So it's not a critical of anybody. It's just, what are you gonna do if you were elected? Let me real quickly take a poll here. How are we doing? Are we doing okay as far as, my mom used to say years ago that the mind can only absorb what the posterior can endure. Are we doing okay? I've got a couple more questions. I just want to make sure that we were still awake and okay. We're okay. All right. Let's talk about what do you think is the most important skill a mayor must have, and give an example of a time you have used that skill. And why not start with Mr. Hewitt?
The mayor of Peru has to be a people person. He has to be able to go out and meet the people. He has to be able to talk with the people. He has to be able to understand the people. I've been doing this as a police officer for over 38 years. I will continue to do it as your mayor. Also, the mayor's office needs to be totally transparent. The door needs to be open anytime somebody from 8 to 5 has a question, can go to the mayor's office. Should the mayor not be in there, then go to his secretary. But it has to be a transparency to where the voters of Peru need to make the mayor accountable. And should I be the one in that office, it will be available to access me anytime during the day. At night, if it's important, I'll probably be getting phone calls. But the mayor has to be a people person, and he has to be somebody that will listen, understand what somebody is talking to them. If they don't understand it, then they need to further talk to that person to find out exactly what it is they want done.
Thank you, Mr. Bunker.
I don't disagree with Miles about open door concepts and that sort of thing, because I believe strongly in open door, that when you're there, you can walk in. The previous administration had that. Anytime I wanted to go up and talk to the mayor, you could walk in and he would talk to you unless he was actually in some type of important conversation. That being said, the most important skill for a mayor is that he's the CEO of a huge corporation. The city is a corporation, just like any other business. It's a government corporation. So the biggest asset that any city can have, or any corporation can have, is an effective CEO that can sit there and manage the city. That's the budgets, understanding the budgets, understanding the personnel, and understanding the vision of where the company wants to go. In this case, it'd be the city of Peru. I have all those skills. I've worked at them for many years, and I think that that would be I think that'd be my strong suit for being mayor, because I understand how government works. Thank you.
Internet.
So very briefly, giving people the ability to go and get information about the city, about our community, online is I just cannot stress how important that is. So that's where I've said it again. But on a different way of looking at this, perseverance is a really important thing. I had a business deal go south with a big company up in Chicago, Fermi Labs, maybe you've heard of it. They were buying about 10,000 processors, computer processors, and my competitor decided to offer them for free, and I could not. So corporate sent me home. And I didn't go. I stayed and spent some more time talking to their engineers about how they were deploying this and all the particulars, and found out that they were actually going to build a building to house where these computers would go. So we started talking about the heat that a computer produces, because I knew that the processor I had to sell generated much less heat than my competitors. So long story short, after several weeks of perseverance, continuing to talk to him, I actually got the sale, and I sold processors against a competitor that gave it away for free. And you see a lot of that same kind of thing going on in Peru. Not everybody is easy to deal with. Sometimes businesses have very specific requirements, and you've got to really find a way to bend to meet them. Or it could be as simple as two neighbors that have been going at each other for 15 years. You still have to resolve that conflict. And you can't just give up, throw your hands in the air, and just not fix it. So perseverance, I think, is a ancillary to all the obvious answers.
Do you think our downtown area is vital and healthy and successful? And if not, what would you do to change that? Mr. Bunker. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. You were right. You were first last time. We'll give that one to Mr. Hewitt.
The downtown area does need some developing. What we need to do is reach out to some of these mom and pop stores that you see in other cities. Find out how they developed their downtown. We need various businesses. Our parking is limited down there, but the more buildings we tear down, the more parking we get. Yeah, it's sad that the downtown area has reached the part where it's at now. And we need to go out, and we can't sustain large businesses downtown, but we can a lot of small ones. I'd go out and see about getting shoe stores in here. Maybe shoe repair I've got a pair of shoes now that I've got to take to Elkhart to get worked on. You know, these are the kind of things, even, you know, as we are developing some of it, there's a lot more that can be done with the downtown area. We're starting to get some restaurants that are opening up downtown. It's kind of nice to be able to walk from the courthouse to go get a sandwich without it being Hardee's and all of the other. And there's nothing wrong with Hardee's, don't get me wrong. But there is, when you can set out, like on Broadway, on, what is it, Broadway, that they just
Broadway
built.
Cafe?
Yeah, Broadway, Boardwalk Cafe, original Boardwalk Cafe. It's kind of nice, we need some more of that down here. We've got the same thing there at Dellinger's, they've got an outside place that you can sit. And, you know, we need to get some smaller businesses down there.
Mr. Macon?
Oh, so Miles, you brought up, what do we do for existing businesses? What happens? You know, we give tax breaks to a lot of people. Makita has some interesting things that they can do, both for new businesses coming in, but for businesses that are already here as well. Two things are low interest loans or a forgivable loan, where they give you money, you do what you said you would do, and then at the end of a period of time, they just forgive the loan, and you're done. You owe them nothing. Those things are all available to existing businesses. If we were to combine something like that with some classes, some business classes, maybe through Ivy Tech, you know, we can form a group of other business owners so they can talk about what's worked for them. You combine the city so you can get zoning and ordinances and all that straightened out. You just put the whole party together, and I think you can go a long way to using that to take. And we've had a lot of good things that in the downtown happen here lately. Rediscover Downtown is just fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic what they've done, and they can do more. Other groups can do more, and so if we combine what those groups can do with Ivy Tech and other business owners and these low-cost or forgivable loans from Makita, I think it's kind of amazing what we could accomplish. There's a lot there. The Chamber of Commerce has connections like I don't even know how to describe that. They know everybody. They really kind of know what's going on with the community. So you can loop them in and connect all of this together, and suddenly even more stuff happens.
I think the downtown is vital to any community, but downtowns have changed since most of us were kids, and they've changed greatly. The downtown that we grew up with probably isn't possible anymore. But the downtown of the future will be like your wife's shop downtown. You can't really buy what they make on the web. The dining, you can't buy your dining on the web. So what I would like to do is integrate the recreation program that I would propose to try to get out-of-town visitors to come visit our town. I just mentioned the splash park. That's just one little item that probably wouldn't bring too many people in. But I have some other ideas that would bring people to our community because it'd be a unique recreational experience. Also, I'd like to utilize the amphitheater over there for like a summer concert series, bringing in musicians who would play, and then out-of-town people would come over and listen to the concerts. When they come over and listen to the concert, or they come over to play, they would also maybe shop downtown at the little craft shops, or they certainly might stop and eat at Dillinger's or Voodoo or any other places that we have to eat downtown. So sort of an integrated program, use the downtown and recreational opportunities to try to pull people from out of town to our town, like most of the people in our town travel to other towns to do stuff. We're just missing a lot of opportunities.
Final question.
That's that perseverance kicking.
This final Jeopardy, you don't have to write it down. We always talk about adding new laws. If you could take one away, what would it be and why? We'll start with.
Now, give us a second.
You'll take that?
I'll take that. The one law,
And there's only one law. It's pretty easy to answer. We have a yard sale permit fee of $5. And I don't know how many millions of dollars that fee's raising for the city every year, because it certainly doesn't show up in the budget anywhere. But if you want to get rid of one law, get rid of the yard sale law and police it in other manners.
Mr. Hewitt?
I agree.
Mr. Macon?
Well, I agree with that, but there's another one that I just came across the other day while I was looking up other stuff. There's
on the web.
on the internet, yes. There's actually a city ordinance that says the folks that drive up and down the alleys taking away our recyclables that aren't actually paid by the city to do it. The technical term in the city ordinance for those people is scavengers, and it's illegal. It is illegal for people to drive up and down the alley and take stuff from your trash and take it to be recycled. It's actually against the law. Are you kidding me? We should be licensing these folks and saying thank you. So that's one I get rid of. Okay.
We'll now have closing statements from each of our candidates. We'll go in reverse order from when we started. So, Mr. Macon, you get to be the first closing statement.
Internet. I have no idea how to close. I honestly don't. I think there is so much that Peru has yet to offer. There's a lot of things that we have to change. There just are. There's no getting around it. Things are different. I mean, I'm 50 years old, and I'm looking at like, what are these kids doing today? I have no idea. I sound like my grandfather now. But yeah, that's all. I'm still young. I get it. But what kind of Peru are we setting up for the people that are going to replace us to have? How are we going to prepare them for success? So the long-term goal of all of us should be, what are we preparing for the people that we will eventually leave behind? And so, yeah, I've kind of made a joke of it now, saying internet over and over again, but I tell you what, the fact of life is, that's where it's going. We are losing a lot of business of retail brick and mortar stores to the internet. It's a fact. It's not going to change. It's not going to get any better. We're losing factory workers to robots. That's not going to stop. So how do we prepare Peru for the next series of generations? And there's lots of things we can do, but we've got to look forward. We've got to skip the next step and the step after that. Let's start looking what happens 20 years from now. Because if we're not planning for 20 years from now, that's like failing to plan for your retirement. Oh, you can get by if you didn't do that, but boy, you'll sure regret the day when it comes and you didn't plan for your retirement. So that's why I look at more forward, more progressive, new things that are different, things that keep up with the times in which we actually live. We're a small town. We're always going to be a small town. I disagree with a lot of points about where our future comes with large business, but there is a path forward for us, and we can go on into the future. Some people have mentioned that small towns are dying. In general, people are moving away from them and moving to more metropolitan areas. In fact, the U.S. Census Bureau disagrees with that, and they've actually, small towns under 10,000 people have actually been growing over time. And we, on the other hand, have lost, for the same period as that report was, we've actually lost about 4% of our population. So it can be done. Others are doing it, and we're in a good position to do it if we can just look forward and plan for the future.
Mr. Hewitt.
I agree with what Mr. Macon's saying. We have to visualize where we're going to be not just 20 years from now, but 50 years. There is so much that times have changed. I've lived here Well, I was born here. I moved away for 8, 10 years and have lived here the rest of my life. I have seen this city change tremendously. I've seen the county change tremendously. I don't have all the answers for it. This is totally new to me. This is the first time I have ever came forward for any type of political office. I do think that my slogan, "Our city, your voice," means everything to me. I'm willing to listen to you. I'm willing to try and do what you want to do. But without somebody coming forward to talk to us, look at our city council meetings. We need to figure out a way of getting people to come to our city council meetings. If they don't come to the meeting, how are they going to know what's going on in the city? They're not, unless I go with my plan of meet and greet the mayor. Come and have coffee with the mayor. Come and have breakfast. Come and have lunch. A couple times a month. Bring your questions. I will be your mayor. It's not about Miles Hood. It's about the citizens of Peru. With that, on a lighter note, this has been very enlightening for me. I thank everyone that's came out tonight, and I feel like a rose between two thorns.
Mr. Bunker? I almost want to say top that.
How do you top that? Okay. Hey, by the way, if he does get elected mayor, he's going to pay for the breakfast. Okay, that's how you top that. Okay, our logo is so much more possible for Peru, and I truly believe that. I've lived in this town for 67 years. I'll be 68 years this year, 60 years old this year. I don't need the mayor's job. I don't need the income. I'm running solely for the passion of trying to turn our town around. We've been going backwards for decades and decades and decades. Somebody has to step up to the plate that has the knowledge, the education, the knowledge, the vision, and the perseverance. I was a custom home builder, and everybody knows what happened in 2008 with custom home builders. We pulled back from that. We've invested in the community. It's taken a decade. They said it'd take a decade to recover. It's been about a decade. We're finally starting to recover. A couple more points of where Peru's really at. I hate to dull you in this, but our economic development, we get something called CEDA, County Economic Development Tax. We have received $6.3 million in the last, since 2011, but we've lost $13 million in assessments. So that means we've lost $2 for every dollar that we paid in taxes. That's not right. The other thing I want to touch on, this is where somebody with experience with budgets, because I was in schools that can make a difference. When I was in the school board, and the chief financial, we had the lowest increase in taxes of any government unit in the county. The lowest. The previous administration had a 6.61% over their administration, and the inflation rate during that time was 11%. So they were underneath the inflation rate with the tax rate. The last 3 years, this is what happens when you elect, nothing against the current administration per se, but this is what happens when you elect people who do not understand how government works. The last 3 years, our tax rates have increased 31.57%. 31.57%. What's the inflation rate? 4.5%. We cannot continue this as a city. We're going to run out of assessments. We're losing income because of businesses closing. We need somebody who has the passion and the knowledge of how to turn the town around. Nothing against David, nothing against Miles. They're both great people. But I have the experience, I've been in these situations, and I think I can lead the city forward to a new future, because there is so much possible for our town. Thank you.
Let's give them all a round of applause. I think it takes a great deal of courage to put yourself out to run for public office, and I think these gentlemen deserve that round of applause and deserve our appreciation for coming here tonight and answering these questions and putting themselves out there. And I also want to thank each and every one of you for coming this evening and participating in our debate and our candidates forum. The city council candidates who came earlier, we appreciate them for coming. I want to remind everyone that election day for the primary is Tuesday, May 7th. Polls will be open from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Early voting will take place at the courthouse between April 22nd and May 3rd, between the hours of 8 and 4 p.m. daily. And then on Monday, the 6th until noon. And then there are 2 days of Saturday voting, April 27th and May 3rd. There'll be several locations for that. We'll be publishing that in Peru, Indiana today. But the time's 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. for early voting on those 2 Saturdays. So you'll have plenty of opportunities to cast your ballot. If you can't make it to the polls on election day. I want to thank Tim Simpkins for helping us out with the timing. He did an excellent job. We also want to thank Stacy Mize for taking photographs for us. Kim Fields, who took care of arrangements for today and behind the scenes and refreshments and everything to put this thing together. We owe her a round of applause. She coordinated this whole thing on top of working basically a full-time job and a half, because she works for the Department of Corrections at Logansport Juvenile and works a lot of overtime. So we appreciate her very much because she does it on a lot of lack of sleep. So we want to thank our regular advertisers of Peru, Indiana today, including Pandora's Box Resale Shop, Bunker for Mayor, Hometown Federal Credit, Boardwalk Cafe, No Pond, Stacy Mize Photography, My Pizza My Way, City Tire, What's Blooming, and Rudy's Critters. And by the way, we want to give a special shout out to What's Blooming for the flower arrangements that we have today. She did a wonderful job on those. Can't recommend her enough. If you need flowers, go see Jennifer at What's Blooming. She does a great job. Finally, a special thank you to Brian and Mallory from the Riverview Event Center. This facility is an absolute blessing to this community. And it is a great event, a venue to hold events, and we were very pleased to be able to get it. And we're very thankful for that. And we also want to thank Richard Spencer from GZ Productions for the sound. He did an excellent job, so thank him. And thank you to my friend John Beitzel, who is recording the event, so we'll be able to place this up on Peru, Indiana today. It's probably tomorrow we'll have that up live, so if you want to go back and relive highlights, or if you have a friend that you wasn't able to be here this evening and you want them to see it, make sure that they'll be able to know that it'll be on the internet, and they'll be able to see it as it'll be on the internet. And with that, we'll bid you a good night and thank you.
I gotta say one comment. I think going back to the high ball kids, we thank Rob for putting this on, because without this type of
Yes. Yes.